Zone of the Enders The Second Runner is unparalleled awesome. To quote some French Canadians, the least overrated game. Some of the best mech designs ever, amazing music, and I can't stress enough how genuinely fun the game is. It has one of the most unique and intuitive control schemes for an action game that hits right in every way. The highs this game offers in the moment-to-moment gameplay isn't often matched elsewhere. It's so good, it invalidated the need to ever play the first game. Zone of the Enders 2 impresses me as it is one of those rare games that only gets better the more you play it, with the additional variety in enemies, your kit, and the bosses. If it's not obvious, this game is digital ecstasy, and with complete sincerity, I recommend to go play it. The most recent release is on PS4 and Steam. Go play it! I want to replay it right now just talking about it. But here's the thing about this release of Zone of the Enders 2. You can play it entirely in VR. When I heard about this, I needed to know how this game could possibly play in VR, especially considering some of the abilities you unlock later in the game. I needed to know. Thank you to my supporters. If you like the video, consider subscribing or even joining the Patreon. Link on screen and in the description. If you do, you'll be thanked in the videos, be able to watch each video a week early, as well as gain access to bonus videos. I'm going to be blunt right here. Virtual reality fucking sucks. I remember when this technology was first coming out, specifically the original Oculus headset, and people were hyping this shit up. Since then, the hype died down, and that's because VR just isn't what it's chalked up to be. As it is right now, mounting screens on your head is a dead fucking end because there's more going against it than there is for it. Best way to get someone in the door and have them actually purchase your product is to have an affordable fucking product to begin with. And right now on the market, there are really only 3 big players in the game. The Valve Index's full kit is $999. You can fuck off the edge of my dick for that price. Would I really want to purchase a game peripheral for that much, or put it towards actual hardware like a PC budget or a console? Or maybe even buy dozens of games for that price? That's a hell of a steep wall to climb, and I'm not willing to do that. As far as I understand, it also requires these base stations to place around your room, and I just don't have the room for a dedicated VR space of really any size bigger than just being able to play at my desk. Then there's the HTC Vive. Whenever I hear the name of this thing, it always sounds like the name of a vibrator to me. Anyway, the minimum you're getting this shit is for a whopping $799 for the Vive Pro 2. And there's more expensive models? Go fuck yourself. And lastly, we get to the Meta Quest 2, retailing for $299. The Quest is what Oculus rebranded to after the shitheels at Facebook bought them. But $299 easily makes it the most affordable and makes this the most consumer-friendly option on the market. There's also PSVR, but I don't give a shit. I'd rather have the options a PC-compatible headset would give me, rather than one locked to the PlayStation. But the Quest 2 is the headset that I have, to give a point of reference, because there ain't no way I was going to give up a whole ass band for fucking screens on a headband. And every single time I have to set this shit up, I always find new inconveniences, and it usually takes me 20 fucking minutes to even get into the actual game. By the time I'm even in, I'm so turned off from wanting to use VR that I want to turn the game off. Anyways, make sure you actually charge your shit because you've kept your Quest in a box for a year, didn't touch it, and now it's dead as hell. Same with the controllers, except you're being asked to find AA batteries for the controllers because they're dead too. You know, AA batteries for 2020 video game electronics. Hold up, the fuck are we doing here? Why the hell isn't there some sort of charging dock for these little shits? Or why can't I also use USB-C to charge these too? But make sure you don't have the headset plugged into the PC until after you turn it on. Can't do it before it's turned on. And only then can you be taken to a different screen to select and use Steam VR, and hope it doesn't soft crash, which I've had happen before. This whole damn process is annoying. But at least now you're in the game. Zone of the Enders 2 is an amazing game, so obviously, regardless of what control method you use, the game's going to be fun, right? Let's just start with the good. First and foremost, you are able to use your own controller and not the pieces of shit that the Quest comes with. Good. Zone of the Enders was originally designed with a PlayStation controller in mind. I could not imagine playing it with anything else. Also, your saves are not locked into or from VR. So if you started a playthrough in VR but aren't feeling it, you could just continue without it just fine, or if you're in the middle of a playthrough and are feeling like playing a session in VR, that's fine too. Now I will say, it is kinda hype to see Jehuty's cockpit in first person. Not gonna lie one bit there. When you're out of combat, it's really cool to just look around, look at Jehuty looming over you, and really feel like you're physically in the cockpit. It also helps that there's a little hologram of Jehuty on the side as well. One of the core appeals of Zone of the Enders is Jehuty's sick fucking design, and it's good to see that that design maintains constant visibility like it would if you were playing traditionally in third person. And the most surprising plus I've got for the VR version of the game is the vector cannon animation. When playing this game in VR, there were two motivations in making me want to see what it was like. And while the vector cannon isn't the primary motivation, it was the second most important thing I wanted to see in how it got translated in VR. For those not in the know, the vector cannon is a sub-weapon you get that exists solely for its hype as shit animation. The big fuck-off gun needing to be chained down, the meters charging up, the life ring has started revolving. Everything about this is so sexual. And it's still pretty hype in first person too. Seeing the cannon itself in first person makes it look way huger than it ever does in third person, and seeing the life ring encircle your entire screen is some good shit. And as reluctant as I am to say this, that's every positive sentiment I have towards playing Zone of the Enders 2 in VR. It's a real shame because I wanted this to wow me, and to give me another way to play a game I love with a fresh point of view. This game just didn't nail the transition to VR, unlike something like Res Infinite, where I will forever say the best way to play that game is in VR. A genuinely life-changing game experience there that you just won't find here. And when it comes to the negatives, it goes from mild inconvenience to actual physical pain. So let's gradually build up to that. Zone of the Enders 2 has both melee and ranged combat tied to a single attack button, and it's so intuitive and flows like calm after a good sesh. It's distance based. When you're in melee range, you swing your sword, otherwise you fire lasers. But it's really fucking hard to judge your distance in VR and know when you're actually in melee range. The solution here is good conceptually, but pretty bad in execution. When you're close to an enemy, the screen will vignette as a signal. This vignette comes off way stronger in the recorded footage where it's pretty fucking strong and obvious, but it doesn't look like that at all with the headset on. The best approximation for how the vignette actually appears is this: off, on, off, on. It's a lot more subtle than what is captured on the footage, and because of that, it's genuinely difficult to gauge range. It's also generally difficult to judge the distance for everything else as well. In third person, you can just use the proximity of the models and environment, but that's a third person exclusive ability. The lock-on fucking sucks. In the standard game, you'd use L2 to lock onto a target, then flick the right stick to change the target to a different target in the direction of where the stick was flicked towards. This is standard practice in action games. So tell me fucking why someone decided to change it to all on L2. Both locking on and off of an enemy as well as changing targets is all on the same button. This makes changing targets an inconsistent bitch because more often than not, you'll lock off of a target instead of changing targets. Just an annoying change. In fact, all the moment-to-moment action in general is a worse experience. It's really hard to tell what's happening around you, which is a necessity for action games. You need to know what is around you, how many is around you, and where they are. But that's impossible to tell when a single enemy takes up your entire field of view. I even straight up died because of this, because of moving environment obstacles that I couldn't see until I got crushed and died. And finally, we get to the zero shift. The zero shift was my primary motivating reason as to why this video even exists to begin with. The zero shift is a sub-weapon you get at the ass end of the game where you can just teleport to a targeted enemy, just straight up instantly in their face at the press of a single button. And I needed to know what this would even look like in VR. I needed to know how sickening it was to experience. And much to my surprise, it wasn't as sickening as I expected. At least for me. Some people might experience it differently, but I didn't feel ill using the zero shift. I instead felt disoriented. The sudden change in position makes it really hard to tell where you are in three-dimensional space. Once you hit the button, all you know is that you moved, but not really where, because all you see is an enemy taking up your entire view. The zero shift works in third person because you can still see your environment on use, but in VR, you can't see shit. But even that isn't the worst sub-weapon. Much to my surprise, the worst one you get is the very first and most basic one, the grab. A certain part of it, specifically, the spinning throw, is the worst thing I saw playing this in VR. It is genuinely sickening to look at, and that's terrible, because it disincentivizes using a fun to use and powerful attack, because why the fuck would you want to subject yourself to this shit? It's nauseating. So you've got to remove this tool from your kit, which sucks because I for one enjoy using it. But even that isn't the worst part of playing Zone of the Enders 2 in VR. Easily the worst aspect is the actual physical pain I feel from playing it. I'm serious about this. It's genuinely difficult for me to play anything in VR for longer than an hour. By the 40-minute mark, my eyes start to strain and seriously hurt because I'm staring into a screen that's 2 fucking inches away from my eyes. Humans weren't built for exposure to screens in such a close proximity. Now, everyone has different reactions to VR. Some people are somehow fine. My friend says he also gets headaches in addition to the eye strain, and I just get the eye strain. Even if I wanted to keep playing, I have to cut it short because the pain in my eyes start to hurt really fucking bad. VR is a dead end in its current form because people simply aren't built for it. Everything about it sucks to use, from the inconvenience of trying to set it up to the actual damage it deals. If you know someone who has a VR headset, it's fine to ask them to try it out to satiate your curiosity because it is a unique experience. But they're just not worth owning. They're expensive, they lack any regular support since good software is rare as hell for it, and in Zone of the Enders 2's case, is a worse way to play it as a whole. VR exists for crazy games enthusiasts, and even as a game enthusiast, I don't like it at all. If you're going to play something in VR, play Res Infinite for the best experience VR can ever offer. Outside of that, don't even bother and just stick to playing Zone of the Enders 2 without strapping in.